I'll call the meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Finance Committee meeting to order. It's December 5th, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Be conducted in the District Education Services Center, Conference Room E. The meeting will not be live streamed on the school board's YouTube channel because we have internet problems here in the district and we don't have the bandwidth. But we will record it, and as soon as we can, we will post it up on the website. We've had public comments were open between 1 and 1:30, and we received no public comments. Committee members, myself, the chair, and Earl Campbell, and Elizabeth A. And I don't see Elizabeth here.
She's coming in now.
She's coming in now. She's here. All right. So the first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Right with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America,
Republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I hear a motion to approve the agenda. We do have one request for a change, and that is to move the annual financial report presented by Mullen and Jenkins right behind the approval of the committee meeting minutes, so the people giving the presentation can leave. Any objection? Ms. Hay, any objection to that?
No, I do not object.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve the agenda.
I make a motion that we approve today.
Been moved by Mr. Campbell. Ms. Hay, would you second?
Yes, sorry. I second the motion to approve.
Yes, thank you. The moved and seconded to approve the November 16th, 2023 committee meeting minutes. Agenda, I'm sorry. Yeah. And any discussion? For discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Say aye.
And motion carries unanimously. There is no public comments. And the next item is the approval of the committee meeting minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the committee meeting minutes?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Campbell has made the motion to approve the minutes. Ms. Hay, would you second that motion?
Yes, I second the motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Say aye.
Mr. Campbell?
He said aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. So the next item is now the annual financial report.
Sir. Good afternoon. We have with us today Hope Pendergrass with Malden and Jenkins, and she is going to go through a brief presentation with you. We have completed the audit and submitted it to the State Department and all the appropriate organizations on Friday afternoon, so we met our deadline. So we're very excited to have completed that. Very lengthy process. And we appreciate the help of our partners with Malden and Jenkins in that effort. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Hope. Welcome.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you all, and I appreciate Tanya and her team and everything that they've done to bring this to completion, and we are appreciative of the opportunity to work with you all. If you just continue the slides, please. I'm just going to talk about the results really quick. We got some trends. We'll talk about GASB pronouncements, and then I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all may have. So just to give you all a little background, Malden & Jenkins is a large Southeast regional firm. We audit over 650 governments throughout the Southeast, including 100 school districts and charter schools. So we're in this arena all the time. keep going, please. This is, it might be kind of small or light, I see now, for you all to read, but this just kind of talks about the results of the audit. We did issue what's called an unmodified opinion. That's a clean opinion on your financial statements. That's the best you can get. So congratulations to management and the board for its leadership in supporting those efforts. We also had no findings, so no significant deficiencies, no material weaknesses were reported either. So you can keep going. The other part of the audit, in addition to opining on whether or not your financial statements are materially correct, we are also required to perform a compliance audit in accordance with the uniform guidance. It's called the single audit. So we don't look at every program, but we perform a risk assessment and do a compliance audit on programs based on that risk assessment. This year we did ESSER, which is required currently by the federal government. We have to do ESSER every year, and also your child nutrition cluster. So those are the two programs we looked at. And again, we had no findings or comments to report in regard to those two programs. The next few slides are several required communications that we are required to communicate to those charged with governance. It just pretty much says that we didn't have any issues with management. We evaluated your estimates. We evaluated your significant accounting policies. There's certain disclosures that are included in the financial statements, and we evaluated if those were consistent with the financial statements. Management was very cooperative. We didn't have any disagreements with them, and they provided representation to us without issue. We also had no past audit adjustments. What those are uncorrected misstatements that aren't minuscule or de minimis, but they might be immaterial, but we didn't have any of those. In fact, we didn't have really any significant adjustments. Most of the adjustments we had were post-closing adjustments that were provided by management, so they identified those rather than something we identified through the audit. So that's not something we see everywhere we go. So again, congratulations to Tanya and her team for doing an excellent job of making our life easy. We're not aware that they consulted with any other accountants. And we are independent in accordance with the standards. So the next slide I'll go over includes a graph. It just kind of talks about a history of you all's revenues versus expenditures of your general fund. So you can see y'all have been inching up every year with the support of your federal programs through COVID monies, as well as other initiatives that y'all are partaking in. Y'all have eclipsed, y'all are bumping up there right at the 300 million mark. So in your general fund for this year, y'all were right at 300 million in revenues and a little under about 298 in expenditures before you consider any kind of transfers or anything. You can keep going. This kind of shows you a 5-year history of your fund balance. So you all did have a positive increase to your fund balance of a little over 7 million this year. And I believe on the next slide, it talks about the fact that your fund balance represents over 21% of your total expenditures. So you all are very healthy from a financial perspective. And I think that's very important because if you think about it, June 30th is probably your leanest time of year. If you think about your budget calendar and when taxes are coming in. So to be even in that strong a position is to be commended, so that, when you all have to pivot and do certain initiatives. I know y'all have been doing several things in regard to your compensation and staffing allocations. Y'all are in a position to be able to do that. But one thing I do want to point out is my number is 5 months old. So I'm not aware, I'm not in the weeds of what you all have done in the past 5 months. So it could, if you look at that number and say, well, wait a minute, that might not be exactly what Tanya told us for November 30th. That's because my number is, again, as of June 30th, and it's really good for one day in time. The next section just talks about, GASB is the governing body as far as setting accounting standards for entities like school districts and cities and counties. So when they issue a pronouncement, it kind of changes the way we account for things. The most recent one that was implemented was having to do with your technology license arrangements. And so we implemented that one this year. But, y'all didn't really have anything that qualified because anything that's 1 year or less or is immaterial is not something that we pick up. So there are more GASB standards that are coming out. I don't really see any of these as being something that's really significant. If you'll keep going on the next few slides, none of these are anything that I think is going to have a significant impact on the district, at least at this time. Some of these are relatively new and won't be implemented until 24 and 25. So we'll get additional guidance on those, and we'll be sharing that with management so that we can have a smooth transition on those implementations as well. The last thing I want to talk about is one of the things that we do when we partner with the various clients that we serve is that you can scroll down to continuing ed. Is we offer free continuing education. It's just something that we do to try to make sure that anything that's occurring in the world that could impact the school district, we want to share that information and share our resources with you. And so that's something that we've been doing here for about 14 or 15 years. And we want to continue to do that just as an opportunity to kind of, again, an educated client makes our job easier. And so we just kind of share that information with you. But that is kind of a quick analysis because we have glowing news. It just said everything was great. But I'll be happy to entertain any questions should you have them.
Before we ask all the committee members, the other board members here, I'd like to ask Ms. Crosby if she has any comments or anything to add to this.
So one thing I wrote down, the graphic that was reported, was fund balance was 20.1% or some number. So oftentimes as we're looking through the financial report and other documentation, you're going to see different numbers, different percentages. And that's because certain, the board policy, for example, takes that fund balance as a percentage of next year's expenditures, which is now our current year. So a percentage of 320 million. The graphic you see there is of current year CY expenditures. So that's a lower, so $298 million of expenditures. So that's why we'll report 19.3% here. They present 21.6. So that's a difference, and you'll see that. This is actually the document that we prepared to 194 pages that I have about 3 different versions of it on my table that I'm holding on to for a minute, and then but that it's quite a lengthy document with a lot of analysis in it, some good information. It's not on the website today because of the internet issues, but we'll get it there tomorrow. And then we have a series of several different entities that require us to send this document along with some other information to finalize our reporting with the state and SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission for bond purposes, and a whole bunch of other things. So our work is not quite done, but we've got the bulk of it done with this. So I'm just proud of the team for all the work that these folks have done and others that aren't here today in this effort, because it's a big deal for us.
Mr. Campbell, any questions or comments? Ms. Hay, any questions or comments?
No, my only comment would be that I really appreciate seeing the information given to us year over year. So thank you to the team for providing historic information. It really helps when looking through this as a newbie. So thank you.
Dr. Goss, your hand is up. Would you have comments or questions?
Yes, I just want to say first, thank you to Ms. Pendergrass. You're very efficient whenever you present, which is appreciated. And I think this is I really think that Dr. Rodriguez, Tanya Crosby and her staff, and the Board of Education for their leadership need to be commended. This is awesome, once again, showing how fiscally responsible the district is. And I'm already thinking in my head that I think I'm going to send this report over to our legislative delegation, along with the facts of how we had just overwhelming support from the voters for our $439 million bond referendum as further evidence for fiscal authority.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, I see you're online. Do you have any questions or comments?
No, no, I don't have any comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will be going through this between now and the board meeting. A lot of good stuff in here. You have had a clean audit for how many years in a row?
Well, we believe it is 23 years. I think it's one more year than I've been with the district, so that's how I kind of gauge it at this point. So it is something that we don't want to miss or break the pattern ever.
Yeah, I mention this every year, but this is not the first time or the last time that this particular firm has done this audit. They've been doing this audit now for us for 3 years, I think, 3 or 4
I think
years.
we're in year 4 of 5.
Year
Is that
4?
right? I think so, yeah.
And my first year on the board, we decided to change audit firms because we'd been with the previous firm for many years. And it was decided to have another firm come in and take a look. And whenever you do that, the new audit firm generally busts their tail to find something to prove that they are more proficient perhaps than the previous firm. And again, we had a clean audit the first year that Maudlin and Jenkins did it, and that track record continues. But for the public, oftentimes they are suspicious when you have the same audit firm do the audits every year. In fact, we had one member of the public came in and public comments to say that our audit results should not be looked at very positively because we had a overly friendly relationship with the audit firm. We don't have an overly friendly relationship with this audit firm. We have a professional relationship with this audit firm. And I thank you for your presentation. And I thank you for the comprehensive report that you've given us. And we will be looking at a lot of the details over the next few days. We'll be reporting this to the full board next Tuesday at our board meeting. Will we have this presentation for the full board?
Ms. Pendergrass will not be available, and we are having some difficulty finding someone to replace her to do the presentation. So I can provide the update based on the information. And if the board is seeking something more, we can reschedule for a later date.
Okay, I think, is that all right, Mr. Campbell?
That's fine.
Is that all right, Ms. Hay?
Yes, that sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Hope, and we'll see you next year.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move on to monthly Board of Education budget. I looked at the budget for the board, and we are at 32% expended. So we are about where we should be for all our expenses. I don't have any questions on that. Any questions from Mr. Campbell?
No.
Ms. Hay?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. The next item on the report is the October 2023 transparency report. And I flipped through it pretty quickly. Mrs. Crosby, is there anything there I should be looking at with more detail?
No, sir, we had the standard information provided. Nothing stands out to
Okay.
recognize, no, sir.
Any questions from Mr. Campbell or from Ms. Hay?
No, I don't have it.
No, none here either.
Right, thank you. We now have the $100,000 report. And I did take a look at this, and one thing that came out, most of it is the standard expenses. But I noticed on page 11 of 14. Our school board's insurance trust payment was $25,398.53. Has that gone up?
For property and casualty,
Property and casualty?
I would say that it has increased. The budget has increased in that area. So that is an annual payment, I would assume, and for property casualty premiums. It looks like a second installment, so it's not all of the years of payments. So, you know, you can take a look at the full amount for the year. Right off the top of my head, I don't know the full budget there. But it's safe to say that there has been increases in insurance for our district.
Yeah, there was a claim that we paid $25,000. That was a $25,398.
I believe that was related to the Hilton Head Middle School event where the fire extinguishers and the
that was a
cleanup had to
deductible?
be, yes, sir. We have a
Okay.
$25,000 deductible.
And we are supposed to be getting that back, as I understand. That we're
Looking to seek reimbursement for that.
yes, yes. And but the school board's insurance trust, that bill is $2,136,648.
Right.
So that's what's the
That's a premium.
premium.
Mhm.
And that is for all our property?
It is for all property and casualty insurance for the district. So it is an installment.
Mhm.
So this is just one of the payments. I have to look to see the other installments and what those, to see the total
Okay.
projected budget on that.
Okay,
We can look into that and provide a little update to the board.
Right. Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions or comments on the $100,000? Ms. Hay, do you have any questions or comments on the $100,000?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next item is Esther update with dashboard. Always looking forward to that.
Yes, ma'am. I'm just gonna let you do it from now on. We're in the home stretch of it here.
Actually, it is kind of short and sweet now. It kind of gets down to that.
Right.
So, of course, we're 81% totally overall ESSER and it's 71% on this last one. We are still reporting on 38 activities in the detail back here that we've always been reporting on in the PowerPoint spreadsheet. So we still have 38 activities that you get updates on. We do expect to fully expend this. Our goal is June or July, but we do have till September on that. So we are right now currently trying to project closer. It's like trying to project real close to it and getting it everything there, because there becomes a timeline where you can make your final amendments
Right.
for that to make sure.
So your goal is to have it encumbered by June?
Or we know exactly how much is gonna be spent in
Okay,
those summer months, because we do have
summer program.
summer programming, but we know what's gonna be there.
Okay,
The bulk of it will be fully gone. That's why I said July, because most of it's
Okay.
in June.
okay,
So we did have, noticed that we did have a little bit lower total expenditures for November. But we did have an one less AP run for Thanksgiving week. And our last salaries hit on December 1st, the next thing there. So we do expect that to go up, run to about 1.2 or 1.3 every month. And then I just gave you a rundown of our largest activities and the monthly expenditure for those.
okay. Mr. Campbell, any questions? Ms. Hay, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Don't see any hands up. So thank you very much. We will, I'll give this as part of the briefing at the board meeting, and I'll show the dashboard again,
Okay,
okay?
perfect.
All right, good. Thank you. Next item is OE 6.1 to 6.8 financial administration.
All right, this one's mine.
Yes.
So this is sort of the culmination, the end of year summary of all the finances and all of the financial reporting requirements of OEs 1 through 8, 6.1 through 6.8. I think the ones 6.9 and beyond are budgetary, so I really kind of split them up. So the first section, so I hit the highlights of the things, the major requirements of the operational expectation. And the first one is the annual external audit. So again, it was performed by Malden and Jenkins. We issued the annual comprehensive annual report, financial report. They changed the name a few years ago. So our acronym is now ACFR for the fiscal year of 2023. And they again, they indicated a modified or clean opinion. This is I put 22 years. That was, I issued this before we had finished our audit. So now we're at 23 years. We also have applied for and received the GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association Certificate of Excellence in Financial Reporting for the 32nd consecutive year. So we will apply with this. The deadline is, I believe, December 31st to apply. And probably in the spring or early summer, we'll get back notification, hopefully on the 33rd consecutive year. So we'll continue that run. And there's certain requirements that they have of compiling that book. And again, Moody's rating was affirmed earlier in the year. We typically get those affirmations and apply for those right around the time we issue bonds. And so we probably will do it again in January or so. But AA rating, bond rating was affirmed, AA1 bond rating, excuse me, again, which is one of the highest possible rating for our district. And it is, we match Greenville County School District with that rating. And it really helps us to lower interest rates as much as possible. And right now with high interest rates, it's really critical to make sure we maintain that rating. So the financial highlights. So our revenues, as Hope mentioned, were about 7.2 million over budget. So we came in as a favorable variance, and almost all of that went straight into fund balance. We really underspent the budget by about $300,000, but there was a final adjusting entry due to the one of the GASBs, the governmental accounting standards regarding leases. That was a $300,000 entry. That is really a non-cash entry. No purchases or cash were exchanged hands. It was just almost like an accrual upfront of an entire first 5 years of lease payments were made in 1 year, which we were not expecting to be made. So that has made the appearance of going slightly over budget, $9,000.
$9,000 over budget on a $28 million. Shame on you.
And I'm very upset. I have been very upset about that. So we really were 320,000 under until that entry hit, and then there was no way to dispute the GASB. So we were forced to display that and try to basically we had to enter an expense that where no purchase actually existed. It was a purchase that will be made over time, the next 5 years of our 5-year lease payments on our copy machines. And then it was a credit to some other financing source entry that I guess is sort of like the same as a liability would be or something. So it made the appearance of that. So I'm still not over it. I'm sorry. So we did pretty good there. Fund balance is moved to the unassigned. The board policy in a couple of cases talks about the unassigned fund balance. So that's different than the total fund balance. So there's two separate statements in our financial statements. There's the governmental accounting standards side that makes it more business-like, and those have an unassigned fund balance. The difference between the two sets of statements is that one reduces prepaid expenses and other already committed funds out of the total fund balance. So board's policy is unassigned, so it brings us to 19.3% fund balance, which is 70 days of operations that we could operate until that fund balance were gone. So that's critical to have fund balance at that level. Because now, for the first year in over 20 years, we have not issued a tax anticipation note this fall. And typically by now, we would have already issued last year this time, we issued a $7.5 million bond to cover just until taxes came in. And this year was the first year in 20 years, we haven't done that. So the savings will be anywhere between $50,000 and $100,000, probably almost the value of a teacher. That we will save, and we're grateful not to have to do the legwork on borrowing and repaying over time and tracking all of that as well. So it does save some administrative time.
It would really be interesting, because the fund balance is $61,831,155. That was a snapshot at 30 June. Be really interesting to know what on Tuesday, what our fund balance is then, because that would show what we would have to
I was
borrow.
looking around to see if somebody had a computer. We look it up right now, but last time I looked, it was 20 million, and that was about a month ago.
Okay,
So
we're right at,
yeah.
about
But now tax bills will start rolling in, we're beginning to start
exactly,
getting
but
our
that
bills.
makes the point
Yeah,
of what it costs us to run this operation from 30 June to now without having much in the way of tax revenue other than car licenses and that kind of thing coming in.
and some state revenue is reported
Yeah, some state
regularly
revenue,
through that
federal
period of
revenue.
time, but it's a smaller portion of the
Yeah.
fund, so.
Yeah.
So we're not able to float the whole amount unless we have a fund balance at a level like
Right.
this, and now we're able
Right.
to do that, fortunately.
Okay.
All right, number 4, we have an annual, actually twice a year, we're required to report on minority and women business enterprise reports, and we brought those forward on January 15th, 2023 and September 21st, just a few months ago, for those annual reports, so we were in compliance there. And then the board policy also requires quarterly financial reporting, which we provided 4 times during the year, the last one being September 21st. And then we also have a lot of financial transparency reporting that are required by not only the state, but the board as well. So we have on our website as a multitude of transparency reports, payments to vendors, the $100,000 reports that you're seeing today, monthly billing statements, credit card statements, quarterly financials, the annual financial, and our approved budget document. So I want to pause there, and this is a good segue into the budget books we talked about last meeting, and we have brought forward bound books, budget documents, and we will have those more ready at the board meeting on the 12th, or maybe possibly available if any board members happen to stop in before then. We bound them this way because if we send them to the printer, they're $100 a piece, and it would cost $1,000 for the board to receive. So therefore, we saved some money and printed them ourselves, and our staff put them together for you today. So that is the budget document for the year that we talked about last meeting. So
I like it.
so hopefully, and so we'll present for the rest of the board, have them ready with Robin and Molly, and then those that haven't stopped by, we'll make sure you get them at the board meeting.
I'll be fine.
But you'll have lots of books. You'll have a collection of books between facilities office and ours. We are keeping you busy with your reading materials. So,
Good.
and so with that, I think I just need a motion to accept the OE, and then we'll consider it on that's
I would like to propose to the committee that this not be put on the consent agenda. I think this is one of the things that this public is very interested in. And the report, we have a motion to approve the OE And so you can give a brief summary, this is back page here.
Mhm.
I think that, do you agree with that, Campbell? Or Miss Hay, is that all right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so can I have a motion to recommend to the full board approval of the OE 6.1 to 6.8 financial administration?
So
Been moved by Mr. Campbell.
Second,
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hay, aye.
Mr. Campbell, aye.
okay,
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you, and we'll give it to the full board during the committee reports. I'll have a motion ready for me to give. Okay, good. All right, let's go to the next one, which is. Pardon me?
Food and nutrition services.
Yeah, food and nutrition services.
All right, yes, sir. So each year we are required by board policy, there is an OE 18 is about food and nutrition services. And it gives us also an opportunity to just update the board on the program, but also to give you some highlights about what great things are happening during the year and what we plan, be planning going forward. So I'm going to start, but I have a couple of guests with us today, and that's Walter Moody, General Manager with the Nutrition Group, and Ginger Weekly, the food service accountant, and she's a Beaufort County School District employee. So they are partnering with us to bring this presentation forward today. I'm going to start with the nitty-gritty of the OE, and then they're going to get to the great great things that are happening in our schools. And we'll end on that note. So we'll get started. The Beaufort County School District, just as a reminder, commenced its food service contract with the Nutrition Group on July 1st of 2022. So we've been a year and a half with partnering together with them. It was a very successful and smooth transition. It was something after 22 years of having been with a different vendor and never really knowing anything different. We had the right staff in place to help that transition, and they had the right team to bring in. And it has been very, very smooth, and I'm very proud of that process. It was quite an endeavor with almost 200 people to onboard during that time. So that it's quite a large amount of work when those size contracts shipped over. So very happy with that. One of the biggest things that in our world this year in the food service world is that we actually added, there's a federal program called the Community Eligibility Program, and it allows there's a formula, some calculations to encourage more and more schools to go fully free for breakfast and lunch services. So we had 11 schools. Prior to this past year, we had 11 CEP schools. They were identified their highest poverty schools. So those that are closest to 100% free and reduced lunch, like Royal Branch, St. Helena communities, were those. This year we were able to add and make work 10 additional CEP schools. So we now have 21. And that total, so 21, including DeFusky. DeFusky is sort of counted with Hilton Head Creative Arts. But we also added, in addition to that 21, we were able to help ACE to be able to be identified as CEP as well. So 100% of students at CEPs may eat one breakfast and one lunch per day at no cost, regardless of meal status. So there's several advantages of it. You have no unpaid, really very drastic reductions in unpaid meal balances. They don't have to fill out free and reduced lunch applications. We don't have to, hound parents to fill them in and complete them, bring them in. So it has, and then end up having more participation by students, so more students are eating school lunch. So you're gonna see some changes in the patterns of revenue and expenses over the last couple of years. That's because the USDA has made some major changes. For, I think it was 2 full years, was it more than 2 years, that we were free lunch, 100% of meals were free during COVID. And so 21-22 school year was the last year of that. So the year that we're just finishing, 22-23, we returned to a traditional pay status. There's a lot of adjustment that has to occur during that period. So one is USDA revenue has peaked during those free lunch times and now take a crashing burn. And so you're having, but that revenue is then filled in with more paying status, the fully paid students and the reduced paid students. So the revenues are just shifting from a federal source to a local source. And then also we did, so free and reduced meals served during 22-23 were 83% of the total meals served. So a large number of the students that are eating are free and reduced lunch students. So because of the addition of CEP schools this year, our numbers were of average of 56% free and reduced for the district in the prior year, have gone up now to 75% because there's more students in that free status at CEP. So it has, like I said, it has a tremendous advantage for our students. So meals are provided at no cost to students during the pandemic, but we had to go back to paying status, but we did not increase the meal prices. So one of the things, if we ever increase meal prices, we must come to the board for approval of that. We have not changed the meal prices in our schools since 2017. The last time they were increased was 2017-18. So we're able to make the program work without any increases in those meals. So from a perspective of menus, menus are very important for our organization. One is planning, student families planning what their children will eat, dietary restrictions, nutritional expectations. So our menus are prepared and posted in advance for public to review. We began posting them on the website, and T&G has an app called NutriSlice that parents can see on an app, go to a particular school and look at the menu options for that day. Parents can download that app on their phones to use that tool, and nutritional information is provided in case there are any allergens and that sort of thing. Occasionally there are substitutions because of supply chain issues or just not available different types of food, but they work very hard to make sure that we're replacing it with its best product as possible. So we're going to see, so compared to the last few years, our participation levels also have a peak and have come back down some. That's due to the free levels, and then now that we're fully in the standard paying practice in 22-23, we're at 2.8 million meals during the year. I think Walter's going to show you some data that in the current school year, those numbers are rising. So we're looking out into the future that things are improving. And then again, you see highlights of the revenues and expenses at the bottom. So the revenues show that peak in USDA funds, and then coming back down this year, and then supplemented with like local sources. And then again, the majority of the food service program is primarily cost of the contracted service. We're paying for all of the workers, and not only to the managers, but also the cafeteria managers and the food service workers and laborers out in our cafeterias at schools. And so that is the majority of the cost of the programs at 76%.
What are the operational costs? What are they?
There are some supplies and materials. There's some depreciation on equipment and other supplies. Actually, when we expend, I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute, but we are required to use any excess fund balance for certain items, so those expenditures would be in that 24% as well. So if we're replacing ovens and steamers and refrigerators, those costs are in this operational piece as well. And the staff, we have 3 staff members that report that are BCSD employees. Their salaries and benefits would be on, and we are required to have at least one on BCSD staff to work with the food service division. So we have about 5 overall in the district still. Yes, I think two more workers and that are grandfathered in from years ago, and then 3 in the district office. So I talked already about the federal revenue. We're down. Federal revenue does consist of about 87% of the total program. So USDA revenue is the bulk of the revenues in this program. And I already talked about the shifting of the revenue sources. But we are, since revenues have come down, we do anticipate offsetting that with more meal participation coming up in the new year. So we think that we're going to come out balanced and be able to offset any reduced revenues that we have seen. So the fund balance on the self-sustaining program, fund balance actually rose from 8.6 to 9.4 million in the program. And the main reasons for the increase are the USDA reimbursements for lunch were at a higher rate than the contracted meal rate that we paid the vendor. So we're making some profits there that have been reinvested back in the program. And so that's why the fund balance is climbing. So over a course of the years, those rates were relatively high during COVID, and they weren't by state statute or some other ruling weren't able to be passed on to the food service vendors. So they were accumulating fund balance. And this is something that didn't just happen in our school district, it happened across the state. But current year reimbursements have been decreased by 15 cents per breakfast and 40 cents. So what we're receiving from USDA is now coming down but those will be offset by the increase in meal participation. So as a result of the fund balance that we've accumulated, we are required by the State Department of Ed, the Office of Nutrition, to establish an excess operating balance plan, the use of it. And so our plan has been in place for about 3 years. We have spent approximately $3.3 million in capital improvements and reinvesting back into this program over about 3 years. And I'm going to show you a few pictures in a little bit on a PowerPoint that we have. But after fiscal year end, we've already spent $727,000 this year. Of that, an additional $1 million in investments in other equipment is underway right now. I just talked to our facilities project manager who helps us with this program. And we are completing a project that has replacements of walk-in coolers, dishwashers, steamers, ovens, milk coolers, warming cabinets, serving lines, ice machines. In addition to that, we have replaced or added or supplemented either shade structures or outdoor dining furniture for at least 13 schools. There may be more. This is all I could compile today. So there's a list here of various schools throughout the district that have benefited from the use of these funds through outdoor dining spaces. They are required, the stipulation is it must be in close proximity to the cafeteria. It must be provided for students to eat. So it cannot be a shade structure over a playground or a shade structure over something that's in the back of the campus. It must be something that would be a dining space for students. And lastly, we have other success stories we want to talk about. That we had 18 dinner program sites supporting our after-school community partnerships, and 31 summer break sites serving students 5 to 18 in the community partnership program, in addition to school locations during non-school months. So during the summer, we have sites that we're providing the summer meal programs as well. And participation rates in both of those programs is about 48%. So just real quickly, there's a short PowerPoint with some pictures. I'm dying to show you what some of the shade structures look like. They're very vibrant. They're just in a little PowerPoint full of excess operating now. Should be good. Should be. It's coming. There we go. At least we have it. All right, this is May River High School. So as if you've been to May River at lunchtime, they are crowded. So we wanted to extend the cafeteria out into a space. This is a large shade structure with picnic tables to provide additional dining space. I think that there is a plan to expand that cafeteria, but in the meantime, we provide at least a little extra seating for students and some fresh air. The next slides are Beaufort Middle and Well Branch Middle. So these also provided additional spaces. So they're a nice, pretty, vibrant colors and really great addition to the campuses. And then now this one's not so fabulous, but it does show you some of the things that we face. This was the outside shell of a walk-in freezer renovation. I think Augustine sent me these. Doesn't look so great, but we were able to use, to make some improvements to those freezers to make sure that they're continuing to work properly and seal them properly so they're not leaking indoors or that sort of thing. Here are 3 cargo vans. We were allowed to purchase vehicles with these funds, and we ship food back and forth. We haul people back and forth who need laborers who need a ride to the other side of the county. So these were not actually brand new because we couldn't find brand new vehicles, but they're much newer than the ones we have. So, and in much better shape and quality. So that's the sort of thing we go do use the funds for. We had a very small box truck, probably a half to a third of the size, and it stayed in the shop more than it stayed in the helping our schools. So we made the purchases of a large refrigerated box truck that we're able to support our schools if to move food throughout the county. Also, we oftentimes have walk-in freezers or coolers that go down. We can back it up and put the food in this temporarily until we can get that back up and running, or ship it to another area where it can be stored. Is that the last? That's the last one. So I just want to give you a few quick examples of some of the investments we've made there. So, and now I'm going to turn it over to Walter.
Okay. My PowerPoint's up there too. So I just wanted to give a quick little update.
That's right.
What we're actually doing. Okay. First slide. So obviously we're committed to serving fresh fruits and vegetables every day to all the students in the county. Obviously, we still have our main entree choices, hot vegetables and that, but obviously for Beaufort County, we're offering fresh vegetables every day and fresh fruits. We try to locally source those as much as possible during the seasons. That's just some of the displays that we have at the particular schools. Next slide. The staff makes all the difference. Obviously, they're in the front lines. Great hourly employees. We've moved hourly employees up to management positions, kitchen managers, and actually DFN positions, which are over multiple schools as well. So next one. So this is our required training day. So the USDA requires a certain amount of hours for every employee working in food service to train. This year we did it at River Ridge Academy. a 4-day training for all employees, to get their hours in. It went over very well, instead of just doing it on a computer learning, they have to do it just watching videos and stuff like that. So this was all in person. Next one, special events. So we do all kinds of nutritional education. You can go down just a little bit back up so they can see that little top picture. So we have our mascot Molly the cow, or Calvin the cow, that goes around and does nutritional programs with the younger grades. The other table there, we do Fruity Fridays, where we introduce them to different types of fruit. With the chef hats there, we did that over at the Fusky Island, where the kids made their own meatballs. Then we do action stations, everything from breakfast to lunch. The other two pictures of the breakfast action station, we were doing pancakes where the kids can watch us cook and actually serve out in the cafeterias. And the other one was a pasta bar there. That was, can't remember exactly what school that was, but the kids are really enjoying this. This helps us also boost participation in the schools to let everybody try the food and all that stuff. So it's just the normal cost of lunch, but then we're just cooking and doing stuff right in front of the kids, which they very much enjoy. So we talked earlier about the CEP schools, the addition to with the Fusky, Hilton Head Early, Hilton Head IB, Creative Arts Middle, MC Riley Early and Elementary, Red Cedar, Buford Middle, Ladies Island Middle, Veterans Pre-Buford High, ACE. So at those particular schools, if you take where we are from the end of November, from this year, from last year, we are up 15% or 56% for lunch and 94% increase in breakfast in just those particular schools that we switched over to CEP this year. So that shows you offering the free meals obviously does increase participation. Next one, the program increase across the whole district. So as a district, kind of every school compared to last year at the same time, our lunch have increased 32%, and breakfast is up 41%, which fantastic numbers, obviously. So, the kids are loving smiling faces. So we've grown our team a little bit from last year. I don't know if you remember, it was just a few. Obviously, I'm as well. I started in November, but our team has grown. Our district team is in there as well. They have grown with us as well, and could have done it without every one of them. So we appreciate the district's help and cooperation, and look forward to moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions or comments?
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Ms. Hay, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't. I was writing down questions and then they were answered during the presentation. So thank you.
Great, that's the best way.
That's the best ones.
Dr. Claus, do you have anything?
No, it was a great presentation. Thank you.
Ingrid and
Yeah, Ms. Boatright, do you have any questions or comments?
Just one, and I didn't have a chance to review the materials. Thanks for the presentation. We're providing dinner at 18 sites. Is that what it said?
Yes.
Suppers, yes, dinners.
Okay, and everywhere else in the county, this is just more clarification. So everywhere in the county has access to breakfast and lunch, but at 18 sites, they have access to dinner as well, right?
Correct.
Yes.
And then you said those were community engagement sites and school sites. How many of those are school sites that get dinner?
I can't tell you off the top of my head, but most of them are actually community engagement sites. School sites do mostly snack. Several school sites do supper as well, but they're not as active as the churches or Boys and Girls Clubs or
Well, I can speak for Boys and Girls Clubs. They don't do the dinners because that's a Saturday program. Our community partnership with is, I think, so I guess my general question, everyone knows what's coming. Is there a single site south of the Broad that has access to the dinner program, or are they 100% north of Broad?
No, they're both
Oh, no, they're
sites.
split up between the two.
Okay.
Any other questions, Ingrid?
We do
Sorry,
do
no,
the,
that's it. Just wanted to clarify on that.
we do the Boys and Girls Club daily. Not just,
We do the Boys and Girls Club at Hilton Head?
oh, Hilton Head, no, we do that one, I'm sorry. Bluffton daily.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see, any other, I have a couple of questions. I was just at a student advisory committee at Will Branch High School. And if I would have shown this self-sustaining program It says fund balance rose 8.6 to 9.4 million in 2023, attributed to the USDA reimbursement rate for lunch at $4.43 per meal, being significantly higher than the $3.48 a meal. I would have students saying, wait a minute, the USDA reimburses at $4.43 and you're spending $3.48. Why aren't you giving us more food? How do I answer?
That's the USDA requirement.
That's guidelines the USDA gives to us of how much we can serve and.
Yeah, why aren't we giving you $4.43 instead of $3.48?
So the contract has been out each
Yeah.
each of the 5-year program. And so that was the rate that was established based on the requirements of the program at the time. So the amount of food a child receives is a result of a nutritional requirement of calories. So they have restrictions on how many calories each grade level of student can have. So they're restricted based on that calorie content. So that's part of the reason is there.
No, that's the main reason is that we're required, we have to use certain size scoops and everything for everything, so the portion size has to be exactly what they tell us it has to be, so. Now, whether we get deals on, how much the food comes in and all that kind of stuff, that could cause a difference in how much.
I hear you, but when I go to the restaurant, I can order the $3.48 dinner, or I can order the $4.43 dinner, and it's generally more expensive food, or it is, that's my problem.
No, I understand. And we do a cost analysis on our menus and all that kind of stuff. And some days we might be serving a meal that's, 3 times as much as a meal the other day. But when you work it out over the month period, then you come down to that cost price. So not, a slice of pizza might be this, but then the next day if we're doing beef nachos with cheese and salsa and all that kind of stuff, that meal costs more than that reimbursement. So there's a give and take on this. If that helps.
Still doesn't.
The 443 though is a reimbursement for a student that is that is a designated free student. Now, if I'm a designated paid student, you only get cents.
So the total revenues balance out the total expenditures, but some students are reimbursed at a much higher rate than others.
I have a hard time. Because when I asked them, and one thing was kind of unusual too. At Will Branch, they said, have pizza too often. What? What? That's well, that's one kid. It just seems to me that if we're getting $4.43 from the feds per meal, that we should be giving the kids $4.43 with the food.
And again, that's the free rate, last year's free rate, which has dropped because of the act, the reimbursement rates have dropped.
All right.
And the client's rate,
40 cents
40
less.
cents.
yes, it's 40 cents less now. Correct.
All right.
So, but again, it's for a free student.
Yeah.
And so at a school where you have free, reduced and paid, or even at a CEP school where we have everybody's eating free, but we're not getting reimbursed all of free.
I got it. Okay, that I understand that. All right. The second thing, I've got 3 things. The second thing is we have a culinary arts program at Hilton Head Island High School, and we have a culinary arts program at Battery Creek High School. What kind of interface do you have with those 2 programs?
Not a tremendous amount. We've been trying to expand that. The students did help us with a few projects last year, but not a tremendous amount. The gentleman, what's the guy at Battery Creek? Mr. Leitner, I've talked to him multiple times about going in. I have a very heavy culinary background about going in there and helping, teaching the class or have them come in and all that kind of stuff. But we need to kind of mend that.
We need to do, that's an asset for you and an asset for us.
Sure.
So, it's a win-win thing if we can have a closer relationship. with those two programs. So that would be really good. The last thing I want to ask you about is vacancies in your staff.
I was going to do that when the thing came up. So, I would say we're probably about 94% staffed at this point, so I have really no complaints there. We are, obviously, we're using the vans. We do transport quite a bit of people from here down to Hillhead and Bluffton area. But we're in a much better spot than we were obviously last year.
I still see a lot of help wanted signs in restaurants and so on, so that
We don't stop.
labor market.
There is, the labor market is very tough, and especially, a tremendous amount of our employees, want to stay in the particular area, and we might need certain area, but we do hire heavy. That way, if someone leaves, we can kind of move people around, and like I said, we have been promoting people from within to different higher positions and all that kind of stuff as well.
Five Guys just opened up and $15 an hour started. That's what they're paying
So,
in their staffing.
oh, we're paying more than that to the extent, so. Yeah, we learned that pretty quick. We've raised rates, raised wages, and obviously increased the people that were already here as well and all that stuff, but we're over that. Yes, sir. Okay.
Keith, Dr. Gloss.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Guyer. To your first point, Colonel Guyer, when my three sons went through the Bluffton High School a number of years ago, tall and hungry all the time, they offered a double lunch, as I recall, or doubling your entree. Is that still an option for children?
Yes, ma'am. They have to, obviously, there's a charge for the extra protein or the extra side or
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
Okay, I was just wondering. Thank you.
Now with the CEP schools, they only get the one meal free and they would have to pay for the extra on top of that. They
Yeah,
would-
okay, yep.
Fun to clarify.
Okay. So, the committee needs to make a recommendation to the board. Do you want to have this on the consent agenda? Or do you want to have the full board vote on this as a separate entity? What do you think, Mr. Campbell? On consent agenda, Ms. Hay, what do you think?
Consent agenda, please.
Okay, I agree. So can I have a motion to move this to the consent agenda for the next board meeting?
I move to accept OE18.
OE 18 food and nutrition services.
Right. Consent agenda.
Okay, now do you have a second? Thank you.
Yep.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hey, I.
Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate the briefing. Okay,
I did have a question.
there's a question.
William.
Mr. Kemp, Mr. Smith.
I don't worry about it. I just wait till later. Don't worry about it. Fine.
Okay, all right. The next item is budget priorities. Thank you very much.
Yes.
What this is the exercise to help the board determine its views on budget priorities for the next budget process. And what we're looking at doing is having board members provide their budget priorities just by title, like they could say, one might be maintain highest starting teacher salary in the state of South Carolina. That may be a budget priority. Another budget priority may be provide a strategic plan for early childhood and enhancing early childhood education. It's kind of up to individual board members to list their priorities, and we gonna ask them to list them not in their priority, but simply list the priority. And I've asked the operations committee, we talked about some possible ones. We did not ask anybody to write them down and present them at that meeting, but to think about them. We also asked the staff what they thought their budget priorities were as going forward. So if I was to ask the finance staff, what kind, and not in order, this is kind of stream of consciousness. What do you see as budget priorities? Because here's what the plan is. The plan is that now I'm going to send out a list of my priorities just out to all the board, saying this is my priorities. And I don't know how many it's going to have because I haven't sat down and put them down yet, but I will probably tonight or tomorrow night. And have each board member have 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20, whatever of their budget priorities. And then we would combine all the board input, consolidate any redundant, maybe say the same thing in different words and they take care of that. And then send that out and say to the board, this big list now put your number 1, mark it number 1, put your number 2, mark it number 2, number 3. And if it's only got 3, that's all you're gonna write down. But submit that into our administrative assistant and she would take those numbers, put them across on a spreadsheet, and the lowest number, now if you don't put a priority down, it doesn't count. Only if you put a number down, but the lowest numbers would be, if you add them all up, the number 1 would be number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. Now, that would be what I call a straw man. That's the first cut of what the board thinks in priority, the budget priorities. We would then discuss that as a whole board, and I would ask Dr. Rodriguez to, just for our information, give us your priorities, not in your priorities in order, just your priorities. And then we can look at that, see if our priorities match what Dr. Rodriguez's priorities are going to be. We would discuss it, and then the board would go back and for one final time list their priority number. This is number 1. Now I thought about that. I've heard the discussion. I saw what Dr. Rodriguez said was 1. I think I'm going to move what I had as 2 to 1. And then we do that process again of adding up all the numbers and then come back with an Iron Man. Okay, it's not the final, but here it is. And then the full board would decide, okay, we can discuss it more. Maybe we could convince people to change up and down, and the numbers of priorities. We might have 5 priorities, we may have 10 priorities. That would also be determined. And then that would be given to the superintendent as, this is what the board thinks. So when you all go into your budget deliberations, it gives you kind of a heads up. This is what the board thinks. So that's the process that we are looking at. So I would ask this brain trust that we have here in the finance department, how about giving me some of your ideas of what budget priorities would be for it? Not in priority, just stream of consciousness. Anything?
I think we need to continue our direction with our compensation for our employees in order to retention needs to be, and that's done through compensation. However, I'm going to put a caveat on that, and that this budget year is going to be unique in that we are reducing by the ESSER fund, so we're really going to have to be cognizant of that,
right? To
make sure that what we're funding we can actually sustain.
So a priority would be to deal with revenue reductions due to end of ESSER. That could be a priority. I mean, just one of them. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, any other off the top of your all head?
We definitely need, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep going. We definitely need to work with our instructional services area to look at their programming. To make sure that the most effective programming is being appropriately funded with the required increases, year-over-year increases. So that we are making sure that our students are the programmatic pieces that are working, that we know are working, are being funded appropriately.
So something like confirm efficiencies of SID software.
That could be part of this.
I mean, there's a lot of pieces
There's a lot of pieces.
to that,
Mhm.
but that could be one of the things that's listed there. It's okay. Anything else?
We need to monitor our contracts to make sure that we're appropriately funding our contractual obligations. Looking at the economy and the impact the economy has on that. How we have caps written into them, but we know a lot of businesses can't sustain on those caps. So we have to look at that overarching. So the priority needs to be that we're maintaining our collaboration with our contractual.
You see, that's exactly the kind of things that we're not looking. I'm sure there's going to be some priorities to increase funding and such, but there's also look at present expenditures and cost savings. Because that's also a priority, because especially as we deal with the reduction of COVID funds. So, but that's something to be looked at, and the board can, they can decide what their top priorities are in that arena. But that's exactly the kind of things we're looking at. For example, just off the top of my head, I wouldn't want to give a priority as increase early childhood education programs. Maybe study how to provide a early childhood education strategy to enhance. Now, but there's a cost involved in that. But it's not going out and doing it, saying, yeah, go spend the money on it. Study it perhaps, okay? And look for efficiencies. So that's some things that should be on this list for people on the board to consider. I don't want the staff to give us 1, 2, 3, 4. These are my priorities, because I don't want to influence the board. I want the board to see all the different priorities that people thought about, and then they can make the decision on what they think is first, second, third, and fourth. Because that gives us more of a objective guidance to give to the superintendent. And the superintendent, he then interprets that. We're not going to tell him, a priority is not going to be I give $100,000 to X. No, that's not a priority. It may be look at providing increased funding for X, but not how much or anything more than that. That makes sense? Would that be valuable to you in your budget process?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
When you have something like that from the board?
Absolutely.
May I add one thing?
Yeah.
I would say that as you're building that priority repository, don't discount anything, because one of the nice things is if you keep that repository year over year, you can look at those things that didn't make the cut.
Sure.
That may
Sure.
may make the cut next
Sure.
year. And know that
Kind of like
we have
8%.
right, we have a limited funding that we can apply to those priorities, so we may have to, if we
Well,
have a list of 10, we may only be
yeah.
able to accomplish the first 3 or 5, but know that we're looking at that list as our guidance.
That's very good comment, because that was my concept, was that the next year you bring that list back in and say, okay, how'd we do? And what can we look at for the next fiscal year? So that's good. Very good.
I was thinking safety and security. I think, we might even identify savings there because of the participation, the grant opportunities from the state. So, as we shift into more SROs and the state is funding them, we have opportunities for savings of our armed security guards. So, we'll be able to nail that down a little more as we go through the year to identify which law enforcement agencies have hired state-funded officers. And then we may identify savings that either can be reallocated to other safety-related resource or programs or
So a
other
board
projects.
priority would simply be look at savings and efficiencies in safety and security operations.
And so we've added a whole lot of safety and security type of equipment with
Mhm.
referendum funds, so definitely want to make sure we're supporting that. The video camera surveillance, audio enhancements, all of the, alarm systems, all of those kinds of things. So we want to make sure that they're supported. That could be a good first use of funds if needed, and then it could go to other areas, for savings. So I think we might see some efficiencies there this year. You should have seen a number of grant opportunities, grant funded SROs this year.
That's exactly the kind of thing that, I'm hoping that we can address when we give budget priorities to the superintendent, that it's not just how can we add, what can we, do that, but what can we save, what can we become, how can we become more efficient? And therefore be able to have resources to do some other thing, look at some other things, to put either new things or add to efficiencies that we've already started.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Campbell, you have any comments about that?
No, I think she had.
Yes.
I think when you're looking at a year, when you are going to be reducing revenues, you've got to look at it from a leader mindset. And you need to view the overall as like a Kaizen event.
Right.
Where you're doing that process.
Right.
Of improvement.
Right.
And continuous improvement, and that needs to become a mindset that continues forward
Yeah,
I would keep that word
that's a very good point.
in my mind.
For instance, it might not be the ESSER program that's working because we have data to support it and looking at those things to make sure things we are doing are effective. Do we know what the real intention for that? So it might be, we want to keep this, but we need to eliminate something else over there. So how do you, things that you've done forever, just, those
Sure.
are kind of looking for those ideas of things to sunset as well.
Miss Hagee, what do you think about that?
I like the idea. Mrs. Crosby brought up one of my budget priorities that immediately came to my mind. So that's all.
Okay, Dr. Gloss, do you have any comments, question?
No, I think very good points were brought up with the discussion. I think me personally, I think one of the highest priorities would be, I think it was the first one that was mentioned about staying at number one in the state for salaries for our first year teachers, because we're on a step scale. That means that as somebody gets more experienced and has a higher degree, they're going to get more pay. And I think that's really critical because the teachers are the ones in the classroom really affecting the education of our students.
Good. Good. Okay, Mr. Smith, do you have any comments?
No, sir. Not this time. I don't. I'm just listening. No, sir.
All right, thank you. Well, thank you. Oh, Ms. Boatright, yes. Do you have any comment?
And I apologize if I'm repeating something because I had to step off for a call really quick. I missed a little bit of that, but one thing I would like to take a look at is our teacher stipends and how much we're paying academic stipends, artistic stipends versus athletic stipends. I think that's an area that, I don't know if that's a financial budget priority, but I think that's an area that could use some alignment with board priorities.
Sure. Okay, good. Good. All right, well, that's good. And I will I will address this during the finance committee report at the end of it. And so we need to make sure it's on the agenda for the finance committee report.
Your summary,
Pardon me?
on your summary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, future topics. Mr. Campbell, do you have any future
I
topics?
don't have any right now.
Ms. Hay, do you have any future topics?
I do not, thank you.
Ms. Boatride, Dr. Claus, or Mr. Smith, do you have any future topics?
I don't have any.
Yeah, Dr. Guads doesn't right this time.
Boat right, no?
Okay, all right then. So if we could go ahead and use the consent agenda to unanimous consent to adjourn, I'll take that motion. So moved. Any objections? Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.